Okay, we're live now. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We're going to be doing a little painting. Yeah, I'm excited to do another painting today. Let me take it off of the easel here. We're going to be working on this little guy today. We're painting some cheesecake because it is my birthday this week. And every year for my birthday, I always have cheesecake on my birthday. So I thought this would be a fun little one for us to do today. And it's a little bit more complex because we've got some more colors this week. So I thought we would start the second one off really strong with a little bit more complex reference photo. And then we can have some fun. So if you're new here, I host these every week on Wednesday. And if you get a rough sketch done ahead of time, then you can paint with me, or you can just hang out and watch and learn a little bit of my process. And make sure you ask questions in the comments if you have any. And I guess we will get started. So I will go to the painting scene here. I do have the reference photo kind of up here as well. So you can either work off of a printed reference photo, which I'm going to do today, so the colors make a little bit more sense for you guys, and then you can see me matching it here, and then we can go from there. Let me turn on another light because I feel like it's a little dark. It got darker outside. Let me grab another light on. There we go. Hello, welcome to the stream. Okay, I think that's a little brighter for you guys. And then this is the kind of sketch that I have done. So if you haven't done a sketch yet, you can do kind of just like a basic sketch like this. It doesn't need to be any, we're going to be adding the details in painting wise. So I always just do a basic sketch of where I want all of the different parts of the image. Okay, so let's start with colors. I've got some colors on my palette from last week, so we're gonna use some of those up as well. That's the nice thing about oil paints, is you can just use paints for like weeks at a time and they're not dry yet. Oh, there we go. I think it's focused okay. There we go. Okay, the one color I'm thinking about also adding to the palette today is quinacridone magenta. We might need it, we might not. I think it might be a fun color to use, which would kind of go up in this area. Okay. And I'll just go over all of the colors that are on my palette already. So this one is a warm white, this is a titanium white, and then we've got alizarin crimson, we've got the quinacridone magenta, we've got cadmium red light, and then we've got cadmium, I think this one was not lemon, this was cadmium yellow light, and then we've got sap green, and we've got cerulean blue hue, and then ultramarine blue. And those are the only colors we need. We don't need any other colors. Should be able to make everything with the primary colors, and then obviously we've got one secondary color on the palette, but everything else is primary. I just like to have a pre-mixed green. It's kind of nice to have that pre-mixed green. So I think what we'll do is we'll start out with this main part of the painting. Hello, kitty cat. He's meowing at me. And you can say hi to the stream. Hello, sweetheart. You can come say hi, that's fine. There's Kit Kat. Sometimes she likes to sit with me while I'm painting. Maybe she'll sit with me. Is that what you wanted? Hello. Meowing at me, so she wants cuddles. She also just probably wants to play and attention. Yeah, you want to play? Okay, so we will start out with this middle part first. So let's work on getting those colors mixed. Let's start out with the brightest colors, the most saturated colors here, which are these really, really bright reds in the photo. And I'm going to use cadmium red to get that really bright red color. And I'm going to take it and take your reference photo and just match it up and see how close the cadmium red is already. It's actually pretty close to the ones around the edge here. So I'm kind of just matching that up. You can see the color is already pretty accurate. So we're definitely just going to put this on the palette as one color in itself. So I'm going to make like a little pile of it. And then I'm going to put it on the side. And I just like to make little rows. I'm going to grab a little bit more of the cadmium red. And now we're going to start making some of these deeper colors as well. So we're going to go for the next color up, and by adding a little bit of alizarin crimson to it, we should be able to deepen the color. And we're just going to kind of play with that right now. I think we might need to add a little bit more. We're getting there. It's still a little too bright, so we'll add a bit more of the alizarin crimson. Okay, a little bit deeper. Yeah, make sure if you guys have any questions, you leave them in the comments. I don't mind answering your questions. Nothing's too easy and for me to answer. Basic questions are welcome if you're just starting out painting. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more alizarin crimson. I'm going to deepen this up a little bit, which means I'm going to have to grab a little bit more. One sec, let me grab more alizarin crimson from here. Okay. I tend to go through a lot of alizarin crimson. It's one of my favorites. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna add a little bit more. I think this is getting close. Not quite there. Need a little bit more. I think that's probably going to be good. It's definitely good in those darker areas there. See you guys later. Okay. Yeah, that color looks pretty good. So we'll put that there, and then we'll make slightly darker color. So we need some of these areas here. So we're going to take the alizarin crimson, going to take more of it this time, and just use the little bit of cadmium red we still have on the palette here. And then we're going to go from here. Let's see. So we've actually got like some nice deep colors in there. So we're going to use that as our next transition color. And then I'm going to grab more alizarin crimson. And now what we're going to start to do is we're going to, for these like very dark areas, you would think that they're black, but what we're going to do is we're going to actually add blue to it, and we're going to make kind of like a dark purple. And we're going to use the ultramarine blue for that, and that should make a nice deep purple for us. I don't want to go too much on the blue end. Yes, you guys are heading to The family is heading to the library, so then they don't make too much noise in the background for the stream, because sometimes they can get a little crazy and make a lot of noise in the background. Okay, so that's a nice that's a nice dark color. I feel like I need to go get some water. My throat is keep the stream in your pocket. Yeah, you could do that. Okay, and then we're going to look at getting some of these other bright colors. So I don't know if you can see it, but here kind of at the top, there's a bit more of like a red orange color. So we're going to mix some of the cadmium red with some of this yellow color to get orange. So red and yellow make orange. I'm going to grab a glass of water quickly. Let me grab some water. And also grab some paper towels so we can clean off the palette a little bit. There we go. Forgot to bring my paper towels over. I guess it's nice I have my microphone connected to my head so you guys can still hear me even when I walk away. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna grab a paper towel. And I'm gonna just clean this off. So I'm cleaning it off in between colors. I'm just gonna wipe that off because we don't want any of that blue to muddy up such a light color that we're gonna do next. Okay, that's good to hear. I'm glad the audio sounds okay. It was cutting out a little bit last time, so I'm gonna grab a little bit more of that cadmium red. This is cadmium red light. Now, that's the nice thing about mini paintings is you don't use as much paint, which is kind of nice. So if you are practicing, it's really good to do the smaller ones first because then you're not using up as much paint at the start. And then, okay, we're going to do cadmium red. And then we're going to add a little bit of the cadmium yellow light. We're going to start to make kind of like an orangish color. And that's going to be the nice color that we're going to use to make it a little bit more orange. It's going to be the color we're going to use for the strawberry kind of at the top part. And a nice bright orange. It's always so cool, like as an artist, when you're looking at these photos and you slowly learn over time how to pick out colors you wouldn't normally see, because normally you're like, you know, strawberry's red, that's what it is. But no, there's oranges and yellows and blues and greens. There's so many, like you've got all the colors pretty much in there. So this orange is going to be nice for this one edge here. And I'm going to put that on our palette so we can use that one. And then I'm also going to mix a slightly brighter orange for the seeds because I also want to do some seed colors there. I'm going to wipe off my palette knife. Also, I've mentioned this in other streams before, but I know there's some new people watching today. Make sure that you invest in a palette knife, because a lot of people mix with their brushes, but that actually can really damage your brushes over time if you're trying to mix paint with your brushes. Because if you, I'll grab one of my brushes out right now. So if you end up getting paint into this area right here that's called the ferrule, then all of the bristles will start to splay and cause issues, because it's really hard to clean once paint gets in that area there with the ferrule. And then you end up with really damaged brushes. Here's like a really damaged brush that I've had for a very long time, and it's like splayed on the end. You can kind of see how it's not flat anymore. This used to be, this used to be a flat brush, and now it's now it's a good blending brush, which you can still use the brushes when they get splayed like that, but it's not so good for what you've intended it for to begin with. Okay, so the seed colors, we are going to want to add a little bit of green to it actually. The seeds aren't like bright yellow, and the green will kind of tone it down a little bit. And then we're going to also want to add some of that cadmium red to it as well. So we're going to get this kind of like darker orange color, like a desaturated orange, because we're going to add that green into it, a little bit more green. And if we match that up, that'll be pretty good for the dark areas. And then we also want to make one that's a slightly brighter one as well. So I'm going to take half of that, or a little bit more than half, and leave a little bit on the palette. And then we're going to add some more yellow to it, so we get a slightly brighter one as well. There. And that'll give us the seeds for this topper right area. As you can see in the reference photo, it's the sun is kind of, you always want to look at a reference photo as like where the light is coming from, and you can see the light is coming from this side, so it's reflecting light over on this area. That's why that's a lot more bright and saturated. And then these are the shadows here. So you've got kind of the light coming from here. There is some reflective light in other areas as well, but the main source of light is in that area. And so the colors are going to be brighter in that area. And that's kind of what we're going for, is making those transition colors from light to dark. So you'll be able to see it if you have the reference image downloaded up close. You can go to my website and download them on the mini paint challenge page. If you like scroll to the bottom, you can download the full reference image too. Normally I send it out to my email subscribers, but I also do keep them on the website in case anyone's new and they want to come back and do it after the fact. Okay, there. Got that one there. And now we're going to work on the, I think we'll stick, I guess, with the cheesecake, right? We're already on the cheesecake area, so let's get this nice kind of white, and then we'll also do the white for the plate as well. And we've got a lot of different colors going on. So the next thing will be kind of these white areas, so we'll make a little thing right here. We are going to work on, I think, this kind of color first. We could go straight with the warm white. This one's going to be a little sticky because warm white dries pretty quickly. This color's from last week, but I try to use as much as I can. The color, if it's left too long, sometimes gets a little sticky. So what you can do is you can actually add a little bit of linseed oil to it. I don't know where my other linseed oil went. It might be in the drawer. linseed oil. I was organizing my tool bench the other day, so I moved a bunch of things around. But you could add a little bit of linseed oil to the paint, and that'll help too. There we go. Now that spreads a little bit nicer. Okay, now this color is not going to be quite what we need. We're going to need to make it darker. So we're going more on the yellow-green end for the cheesecake part. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, but that's going to be too bright. So in order to lighten that, we're going to go with the complementary color, which is kind of like like we're going yellow, not the complementary color, it's more of like a blue. But sometimes I like to just add a little bit of green because green is made up of yellow and blue, and that'll get there fast enough for us. Okay. Let me check how that's close. We need a little bit more yellow in there. We don't want to make it too green. Don't really want like a green cheesecake, so we need to add a little bit more yellow. And then the other color we're going to need to add is a little bit of the alizarin crimson as well, because there's almost like an orange tint to it. And this color is going to seem really weird at the start because you see the cheesecake and you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely like a white. So you want to go like really white, but when you're putting it on white paper, it's gonna look weird. Yeah, see, that's a lot closer. We could even go a little bit darker with some of that, but that's like pretty close. It's hard to tell on camera there, but it's actually pretty close to that color in there. I'm gonna add a little bit of, how do I change this? Add a little bit. We'll keep a little bit on this palette. And we'll maybe keep the color kind of in this area there. And then we're going to slowly add a little bit more of that. You can kind of see on the edges that this has more of like a blue tone to it, whereas this is more of a warm tone. So we're going to actually use the titanium white for this next section. So we'll grab a little bit of the titanium white and we're going to slowly lighten this color with that more blue white. It's very subtle, but you'll notice the difference when I start adding it. Yeah, I listed the base colors in the description, so if you want to look there, I list normally the base colors that I use in the description. Some of them I'm not using today, but I just give you kind of like my base color palette that I like playing with. The colors we don't have on here, I think, are burnt sienna and burnt umber. I don't use them very often, but definitely for like nature scenes and stuff, I'll tend to use them just because it's like easier earthy browns, which is nice, and then you don't have to like mix them up. Okay. This is like a good transition color for some of these other areas here. And then I also want to go more on, like I said, the bluish end there. So I'm going to clean my palette knife. And then I'm going to add some more of this titanium white to my palette. And I just pick up a little bit of this yellow and mix it in. Just kind of use what's already on the palette as it is. But yeah, I leave a lot of info in the description. So if you're watching this back, there's a lot of info in the description. You can kind of read through that for colors and like supplies and stuff that I use. If you want to use some of the same supplies that I'm using. Okay. So that's going to be too bright. We're going to go more on the blue end with this color. It's almost got kind of like a pinkish tone to it. That's kind of why I was thinking I wanted to go with this quinacridone magenta. I don't know how much I want to go with it though. Might be a little too bright. We'll put a little bit of quinacridone magenta in there, and I think it'll give us the color that we're looking for. It's got kind of like a bluish red. That's how I would describe it. And it turns into like a really nice pinky purple. And then I'm going to try matching this up a little bit. That's pretty close. We want to go a little bit deeper with that color. A little bit of green to it. Don't want it to be super saturated in that area, so I'll add a little bit of that green. This is one of the reasons I said this painting's going to take us longer, is the color matching on an image like this. There's just a lot of different colors we want to mix beforehand. So this first little bit is just going to be mixing the colors and making sure we have some accurate representation of these colors before we start. Just makes the painting process go so much smoother if we do all of this before we get everything going. Okay, this is closer to what I want now. Let me see. I think we could even go a little bit more with the quinacridone magenta. I want it a little bit brighter. A little bit more of the green as well, the sap green. The color is just a little too saturated right now, the quinacridone magenta. I'm trying to add little bits at a time so I don't add too much. It's hard sometimes because you end up getting impatient and then wanting to add too much of one color, which will not go over so well. Like we might have put a little too much that time. Add a bit more magenta and see how that goes. Getting a little closer. Getting a little closer. We almost need more of that. I didn't want to add Let me see. Like it's honestly close enough to the same tone that we can just play with that. It's almost kind of like a nice light purple, and I like that. Sometimes we don't need to match the colors exactly. We want a slightly different color, which is nice. And then what we're gonna do is we're also gonna play with this plate color now. I was thinking I wanted the plate color a little bit kind of similar to this purple, except a little darker. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that, and we're gonna slowly darken this up just to do more like a purplish in the plate, which I think will just add more color to the image instead of just going, you know, with like a grayish color. A lot of people would take black out and then just lighten it, but there's just, I don't know, I like making my images a lot more colorful than taking black, because I find black and mixing with it is really flat. Okay, we're making this a little bit darker. I am going to add a bit of green to this. It'll give us like a darker gray, I guess, is what we're going for. But more on the purple end, you know? A gray that's on the purple end. That's like the best way to describe it, I guess. Yeah, see, we're getting there. That's becoming a really nice purple that we'll be able to play with. Well, that's really pretty. I like that. And what we're trying to do is, if we're going to switch the color up, we're going to try to create the same value. So that's like the light and darks in the image. So you want the image to be the same type of darkness and saturation as the image. Thank you. Yeah, my birthday's not technically till Saturday, but it's my birthday week. So thank you for all the birthday wishes this week on all of my different socials. It's been nice to get that from everyone. So yeah, we're looking to match that color a little bit. I might even want to make it a little bit more desaturated by adding a bit more of that green to it. I don't want to make it too dark though. I'm gonna add a little bit of the titanium white to it. We'll see how that does. It's pretty close to what we want, so that's kind of the color I'm looking for the plate. I want it more on the purple end, so I think we've achieved a nice value to match that, and that should be good. So I'm going to maybe put this one down here, and then I also want to make a slightly dark area here. So we're going to go in with those colors again, just with less of the white this time. That's the one thing with white when you're oil painting, is when you add white to it, you have to be really careful that you actually want. That's why I always add the highlights last in my paintings, because I find it gets everything else, like all the values get kind of skewed if you add too much white to things. But for like this particular area, you're gonna add white to it. Okay, so that's a little bit nicer. I like that darker purple color. I wonder if I mixed up enough there. Should be enough. It's a small painting, so we should have enough of that color. That's a nice thing about the small paintings, at least. Mixing up a little bit of it. We shouldn't have to mix it again. I'm just gonna clean my palette knife off. And then I'm gonna work on mixing these brighter highlight areas, specifically, like all of these highlights are very similar. They've got like a nice blue tone to them. So we're gonna stick with a bluish highlight. And in order to get a really bright blue highlight, I love using titanium white because it's already got a little bit of that blue undertone. But in order to make it a little bit more blue, we take this one, and then we want to add the tiniest amount of, like the tiniest amount of cerulean blue. You don't want to add too much of it because like it's a very, very pigmented color. And we're just going to add a little bit to this white, and it's going to give us a really nice blue. Oh no, I still had a little bit of color on my palette knife. Hopefully that's okay. The pink was still on my palette knife a bit. Should be okay though. It's still on the blue end, so I'm going to grab a little bit more of that cerulean blue. And this will be a really nice highlight color. And this will work for the highlights over here, and then it'll also work for the highlights in the plate too. Yeah, that's a pretty nice highlight color. And it'll work in the strawberry area there as well. So that is what we will use for the highlight. Okay, I will put this on my palette here. And then the next part and this one is not quite what we're looking for yet. We're going to add a little bit of the yellow to it. And we're going to lighten that with the cadmium yellow. Oh, did we lose sound? Oh, that's not ideal. Oh. See, I don't know why it's been cutting out like that. It's weird. The audio did that, I noticed on the last stream. It kind of like cut out a bit, but it still says that my headphones are working, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's like the Bluetooth connection or something. Alright. Go back to this, I guess. Okay, so we're going to make some of the greens in there, but in order to do that, we're going to need to add a little bit more blue to it because this is not quite the color that we're looking for here. We use the ultramarine blue, and that's going to deepen the color a little bit. Well, hopefully the audio stays back on for us again. Okay. I'm gonna make this a little bit darker with the ultramarine blue. Just trying to make these darker areas first. And then once we have the base color, we can kind of lighten it pretty easily with a little bit of yellow. Just have to get that base color down first. So that's still not quite what we're looking for. We're going to want to add a little bit of desaturation to it. So we're going to do the opposite color to green, which is kind of more of this red color here, which is alizarin crimson. I wonder if you guys can hear the vacuum out in the hall. The cleaners are out in the hall right now vacuuming. Not ideal timing to vacuum. I like turned off our AC and everything because I'm like, I don't want the audio to pick up stuff. Yeah, the audio's cutting out anyway. It's okay, there's always technical difficulties when it comes to streaming and stuff. Just gotta roll with it. Okay, I'll put a little bit more red tone to it. We're getting there. A little bit more of that yellow as well. It's honestly like pretty close to the strawberry color as well. Hello, welcome to the stream. We're almost done mixing colors now. We are at the final stage of mixing all of these greens now. Make a nice green palette. I think this green will be good. It's close enough to that color there that I was looking for. Maybe put it in the middle. Feels like kind of the middle tone of color. Okay, I'm gonna grab a little bit of that, and then we're going to lighten this up by adding a little bit of yellow. Just for the tips where the sun kind of hits the edge of the leaf. That's kind of what we're going for. So that little leafy area at the top. A little bit brighter. Some people would be tempted to add white at this point to lighten the color. But ideally, like I said, you don't want to add white because it's going to, unless you're going for more of like pastel colors, it makes kind of the color a little bit too chalky a lot of the time if you add too much white. So I save that for like the brightest highlight area. Okay, that's a nice transition color. And then we'll keep a bit of this and add a little bit more yellow on top of that. We're going to lighten it even more. So we're just making some more transition colors between that green and the yellow here. This is going to be our highlight for the leaves. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So those are going to be the nice leaf colors there. And then I would say for this background color, we're kind of on more of like the orangish green end. So we can keep whatever we have on here because it's going to be more orangish anyway. And I'm going to actually start out with yellow. And then we will add, thinking instead of using the sap green, since we use that for the leaf, we'll just mix up our green. So I'm going to go with the ultramarine blue, and we'll mix up kind of a deeper green, and we're just going to be using like primary colors here to mix this. So we're going to take this is kind of like a bluish green color, and then we're going to slowly add a little bit of the alizarin crimson, which is the red, the deepest red. A little bit yellow. There's almost some like purple tones in the background there. We're gonna really try to play with that darker color. And the reason I'm not going to use the sap green for this is because I want the background to stand out from the leaf colors a bit more. So I want to use some different pigments for that to make sure we don't have any issues with it standing out. Okay, that's actually a pretty good match for this one area there. And then going to put it here, I think. Keep a little bit of that. And we're going to slowly lighten this. So I'm going to grab a little bit of that off of there. We're going to lighten it with a little bit of this yellow here. I'm going to try to get some of this orangish tone. So I'm going to also grab a little bit of this cadmium red light. That should lighten it in a really nice way there. That's actually pretty accurate, I would say already. Yeah. Just trying to see if there's anything slightly lighter. Definitely got a little bit of that purple in there, so we might even use some of these plate colors in this kind of purplish white area. So we've already got those mixed up, so we'll just use kind of like this color in there with there. And then we need this deeper color as well. So that is more on the blue end. This one that we made over here is more on the red end. So we're pretty much going to mix this color up, but make it more on the blue end. All we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the ultramarine blue, and we're going to add a little bit of the alizarin crimson, but not too much because we don't want this super red. We want it more on that blue end. And I am going to add a little bit of the no, I said I wasn't going to add that to the background. We won't add that one. We'll add a little bit of yellow to it though. I don't want to add too much because I don't want to lighten the color too much, but we want to keep it on the blue end there. Yeah, normally Arvin listens to make sure my audio is working okay. I mean, I guess you have headphones, so you could listen and make sure it's working. It's weird that the audio is cutting out sometimes, so I hope it's okay now. The other thing I could do is nope, it's on the power mode. I'm just making sure my computer is on like streaming mode, and then it can pull more power from there. That's pretty good. Okay, still need this more on like honestly, that's pretty good though. I'm gonna stick with that. This looks pretty good. And then we can get to painting. Okay. And I think we've got all of the colors that we need. If we need any specific colors while we're painting, we can always come back and do more, but I'm trying to think. The only color that I was like, we haven't really mixed, but I thought we could kind of use this orangish color that we're going to use for the seeds for this area down here, which I think will work. I think we've got enough colors on the palette to kind of make do with what we got so far. Okay. So I will switch to the main painting scene there. And then you can see my reference photo. Just got the baseline, so I normally just draw in the baselines. I have had some people want me to do the sketch with you guys, so I'm thinking maybe for my next stream I will add a little bit of extra time onto the stream so then I can show you how I sketch. It does take a little bit to sketch, but that's okay. I'm showing you guys if some of you are interested in seeing my sketching process too. The easiest thing you can do if you're starting out, there's no shame in tracing as well. So you can take the paper and put it up to your computer and just like trace, or you could put this, like if you have it printed out, you could put it on a window and kind of put your thing over top of it. But normally what I do is I either kind of like take it and put the reference photo beside it, and then what I do is I like mark off with my fingers, so you can kind of like hold. Let me paste this on here and I can kind of show you. Give you some tips on this. So I'll just take my finger and I'll put it here and I'll be like, okay, that's kind of where it starts. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of where it starts, and then I draw like the edges based on that. You can also do it by eye as well. And you can just start getting kind of like the biggest base shapes first and then work from there. We're going to add all the detail in with our paint anyway, so the sketch doesn't need to be super accurate as it is. So I've got a little bit of a cloth here. I've got a little bit of linseed oil I'm going to keep at the side just to help clean my brushes in between if I want. And that's pretty much what I need. And then I will kind of tell you which brushes I'm using as I'm using them. So then you can, if you're curious about which brushes I'm using, then you can see. Let me see. Okay. Just making sure I've got all this set up before we start. Looks like it is bright enough this time. It was a little bit like less bright last time, and I wanted to make sure that you guys could see it okay. And I will move this camera over here. You'll be able to see, I guess, the cat tree if I move it over too. No cat's on the cat tree right now though. And then when I move over here, then you'll be able to see me for painting. Okay. So we're gonna start out with, we've got the sketch there, and I like to use my little gummy eraser, and I take a little bit of the graphite off of the sketch before we start. And that's why I don't do a super detailed sketch, because you're gonna erase most of it anyway, because the graphite, you don't want that mixing with your paint. It really can muddy up the image. Okay, that's all I'm doing is I'm taking it, and then you can kind of see on the eraser that it is coming up a little bit. Just enough that we can still see what we've got underneath. All we need is a really basic outline anyway. We can make two. And I was kind of saying this last week that you also don't need to match the reference photo exactly. Like, we're not gonna do exactly what's in the background. We're gonna kind of fluff it a little bit, make it our own. I got the bulk of the really dark ones off of it, just enough that you guys can still see the sketch, but it's not too bad. There we go. Now I'm gonna normally roll this up and then put it at the side of my easel. And then I stick this in it. I have a little crusty burger. I don't know if you guys could see that. A little crusty burger thing. We went to Universal Studios and it was in our burgers. I saved it because I thought it was so cute. I'm like, yeah, that's going on my easel. Okay. So I tend to start out with a bigger brush first. So bigger brush for a small painting anyway. So this is it compared to the painting. So we're going to start out with this slightly bigger brush, which is a number 2 Seneca flat brush. And this will be a really good, I like using flat brushes to start because you can just kind of lay on the colors. So we're going to slowly just lay on some base colors and then we will go in, back in after the fact and add on those highlights and stuff. You want to get the base colors down first before you go in and add highlights because like I was saying, the highlights, they like the white, it kind of mixes in and causes a lot of your values to go off if you add the highlights in right away. Okay, so let's, I mean, honestly, I think starting with the cake in the middle would be fun. Just start with that to begin with. Kind of start, I normally like starting kind of in the middle and then like working my way out. So I'll start in the middle kind of with the strawberry and the cake area. I'm going to start with the darker tones first. So I want to go right in with this red color. I'm not going to start out with the darkest. I just tend to like to go in with color first. And the nice thing about this is I actually have a reference photo right beside it this time. Because normally I'm like working off of my computer. I have to keep looking up at my computer monitor, but it's kind of nice to print out the reference photo. I'm realizing how much I'm enjoying having the reference photo printed out. So all we're doing is we're looking here and I'm like, okay, this, you can take your brush and literally just put it there and be like, okay, we're working on those colors. We're going to slowly lay it in and cover up all the white. I was saying last week, if you really struggle with adding the colors on, you can also use kind of like a toned paper. You can either buy a canvas or paper that's already a slightly deeper color and not just like a white, or you could tone it yourself. Some people like to use like acrylic paint and stuff. I don't like painting over acrylic paint. I don't like the texture of acrylic paint, so I just paint straight onto this. I don't need to gesso this paper or anything. That's the nice thing about working on some of these already primed pieces of paper. You can just paint straight onto them. And they're already primed for you. They've got a really nice texture. This is a canvas paper, so it's quite a bit more expensive than just a regular paper. It's specifically designed for oil painting. You want to be careful when you're oil painting that you paint on the proper surface, or else your paper will just disintegrate over time. That's the thing with oil paints. If you're oil painting, oil paint will last a long time as long as your surface is primed really well. So I'm kind of just leaving gaps for a few of the highlights, but honestly we're going to add the highlights in after anyway, so we don't need to worry too much about that aspect. And free to also listen to music while you're painting. I tend to like things quiet when I'm painting, so I don't have any music on over here. Kind of figured I'd let you guys choose your own music. That's why the streams are quiet. Red. There's more highlights in some of these areas. Just adding little dabs of the color at this point in these areas. Okay, now we're going to go in with a slightly brighter red color. Put them on the edge. Take a little bit of this darker red off so we can slowly work with the lighter red. Going with this red now. The reason this is getting lighter is because you can see the sauce is kind of getting thinner. It's showing more of that whitish background. So that's what we're trying to create. Adding little bits of red throughout here as well. Okay. And we're going to slowly get kind of like those lighter colors as we go down. And this one has more of that lighter color. We'll be able to play with it a little bit more as we add the white in as well. So we'll maybe play with a little bit of the white next in the cake part. These nice little drippy areas. Seneca flat brush, so that's going to be my next one. And I'm going to go in with the cake color now so we can start blending in some of those areas. So the cake color we chose was a little bit of this yellow color and then fading into this little yellow color. So we're gonna grab these darkest areas here. Be white to begin with, but don't worry, that's what we're going for. It's another one of those trust the process things. It will come together at the end. And at the start, that's okay. Practice to be able to do and like determine these colors ahead of time. Beat yourself up if exactly how you want it to begin with. Even now, I still get challenged with new subject matter. That's why I really like doing these, because I get to challenge myself with different subjects and different complexities. So even some of these are a challenge for me. We're going to go on that slightly lighter color, and we're going to slowly start putting it next to these red colors. Love how as we lay this color down next to the red starts kind of spreading out and creating all of these like little drippy areas, which is kind of what we're going for. Okay, we're going to add some more along the edges, and then over kind of on this area we've got more of that purpley color, so we're going to go in this purple color. And then a little bit of this lighter color that we made as well. It's just because there's more light kind of reflecting on this side, and so it's hitting the side of this part a little bit different than it is the other side. And we're gonna go back in and like fix some of this red stuff after, but for now we've got these base colors we can start on. There we go. And we'll like I don't want these kind of drips to be super bright. We almost want them fading into the cheesecake a little bit. Just kind of cleaning off my brush a little bit. This is kind of the stage where you also have to trust yourself as you're doing this. A lot of people get really frustrated. I know I definitely do sometimes when it's not blended yet and it's kind of just looking a little it's like the best way to describe it, I guess. Like it doesn't look quite right at the start. I'm just trying to trust that you'll get there. Adding a bit more cake to this top part here. Some hair on that. Some cat hair. And we've got a little bit of that yellow over here. Add more of that yellow in. There we go. Okay, now we're gonna add the bases in. We're gonna come back to the cake part, obviously. And we're gonna start adding in some of the dark areas here. So we're gonna grab this really dark color that we made. We're gonna add this in to here. Another cat hair. Things painting at home. Get cat hair and everything. Okay. And this will start to add a little bit more depth to these areas. We're getting that darker color in here. Kind of a really dark area around this edge here. I'm just trying to add that darker area in. Over here. And we're going to also add some of the dark area into the strawberries as well. By strawberries, I mean strawberry. Go in with this red now. We're kind of just doing transition colors like we did on the other part. So strawberry is a very similar color. Just got more texture in the strawberry, so we're going to be adding all of the seeds and stuff in. Not quite yet. That's like kind of a last thing we'll do, is add the seeds in. I want to be able to get that base layer done first. And we'll go back in. We'll use our tiny brushes at that point to add up all of those. We're going to go in with this color here. Just lightly blending it. We don't want to really blend these colors. That's why we mix the colors ahead of time. So we can do the transition colors rather than blending it on the paper. Okay, now we're going to go on with those slightly lighter colors as well. I've got this orangish color that we made for the top part of the strawberry. And then on the very top, kind of more of this yellow there. And there, we've got more of the base of the strawberry now. And we can go in and add some details and stuff. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my smaller brushes. I have this is like a really old 2/0 round Princeton Imperial brush. It's got the crappiest little tip on it, but it's great for blending. So we're going to take this, we're not going to add any color to it, and we're going to kind of dry blend these colors, and we're going to take off a little bit of the pigment so then we don't have too much pigment on paper. So I'll take it and then I'll clean it off, and then we'll go back over here and we'll blend it out, take some more pigment off, and we'll clean off the brush again. And this will give us like nice kind of transitions, and you don't want to be layering on a really thick paint when it comes to this next layer. So taking off a little bit of the paint is ideal. You want to start out with a little less paint and then work your way up to a thicker paint. If you have added too much paint, all you have to do is go in with a dry brush and just take a little bit of the paint off. At least in this case, it definitely works pretty well. also think this week's reference photo is going to take us a little longer. Got a bit more detail. I can't believe how quick we did last week's one. I guess it was like a pretty simple one with not like tons of colors, but we did it in like an hour and a half last week. Like honestly, pretty quick. Look, me taking off a little bit of that paint definitely is showing the shape of the strawberry now, which is nice. You can kind of start to, like, everything's like taking more shape now, which honestly pretty good for the first layer. Sometimes it takes a while for you to like notice the colors looking accurate and stuff, but we picked some really good colors to start. Okay. There we go. So yeah, I recommend damaging a brush and then using that to blend stuff. Every artist ends up damaging brushes at certain points. This was one of like my first brushes I ever got actually, which is why it's so damaged and I didn't take very good care of it. That's why you gotta wash your brushes. I'm better with that now. I wash my brushes after I use them. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, we're going to now get some of the more of this down area here because it looks pretty bad right now. Could definitely blend this out and it'll look better. So we'll just get to blending that already. See how just blending that makes a huge difference. Like it's important to take the time and probably go back in with a little bit more of the red, but for now we're just trying to get a few of these. They're almost like kind of wiggly. I like how there's actually some like reflections going on in this area, which I really love. This one actually isn't my reference photo. I did like find this one on Canva. A lot of the time you can find reference photos on there, and as long as you change the reference photo, you're allowed to use it copyright free. So I changed the background actually on this one and adjusted the colors. So like this earthy background wasn't there before. Kind of mashed a bunch of things together and then made my own reference photo that way. I take them into Photoshop a lot of the time and adjust things in Photoshop, which is nice. But you can also just do it straight on Canva as well. If you haven't used Canva, you definitely should use Canva because it's I've been one of the I use Canva Pro and it's so helpful for all of my like graphical needs. I mean, you can just use the free version as well. Pro version, there's features with the Pro version That's so helpful. Okay. Just kind of, why are my eyes watering so much? To add more of this brighter red in here. I'm going to kind of take this darker color and I need to add it into some of these areas. I noticed some of them aren't dark enough yet. Just going to go in with a little bit of this. And go. Most of the darkness doesn't go down into here, but there is some darker areas, so I am going to start to bring a little bit of that darker color into a few of these on the dark. So like I said, I'm going to use this kind of color at the bottom. I'm just going to kind of create that calm area. So notice that like this side is super wonky. It's okay, still haven't adjusted things. That's what we're doing though, we're adjusting it slowly. Okay. I'm gonna go back to this like little brush. I'm gonna clean it off a little bit though. It's gotten a little bit too much pigment in it. I'm going to use this purplish color and I want to a bit more of this yellow as well. Just trying to get this transition a little bit nicer around that area because I want to show the edge of the cheesecake more. I'm going to make this area a little bit darker by adding this kind of yellow, but I'm going to mix it with this yellow up there. There's some like darker areas, and actually that orange color is working out well. Just to kind of darken that area. There we go. That works out. Okay, and then I want to darken the areas. You can kind of see in the crumbs, there's a little bit of those deeper shadows. We're going to start adding some of that plate color at the bottom into it, which are these purplish colors. This is like the darkest part of the plate that we're going for. I'm just going to put it along the edge here. Okay, that kind of adds a little bit more contrast there by adding some of those darker purple shades in with the orange. And then we'll go back over the purple with some of those lighter crumbs as well. But for now, at least we've got kind of that darker part of it. Can probably, I'm going to flip this over. We have a fresh area. I'm going to clean off this brush, this little round brush. I'm just going to call it the blender brush at this point. And I'm going to start adding in these areas here. So I'm going to take some of that orange again and tap the orange in there around the purple. And then we're going to also use a slightly lighter color, especially around here. As it gets to this area, you can kind of see there's a little bit. Let me take this yellow, which I think is bright enough. Maybe too bright. Be careful with adding too bright of a color. Just kind of dabbing the color on, using a bit of a combination of this yellow and this orangish color. That'll give us a nice texture, I think. There we go. Now we've got more of that like crumb texture at the bottom. We can start working on, I'm thinking I want to start doing some of the details in the strawberry next, so we can get some more details in there. Or we could do the plate. That might help us with the look of everything. Let me grab a brush. Let me grab maybe the plate, we will use, let's use a number 6 flat shader, the Princeton Velvet Touch one. So we'll use this one. Trying to make sure you guys can see it okay. And it's just a little flat brush as well. And we're going to start in with the darkest colors and then work our way to the lighter color of the plate. Okay. A little bit of that darker color in the crumb area. Grab a slightly lighter color now. Another cat hair. Just gonna try to get the edge of these done. We can always come back and soften up the edges of each of the transitions for these colors, because you can see there's a lot of like different shadows in the plate, which are kind of fun. And then this one kind of connects over here. There's like some really cool reflections going on in the plate, which is kind of fun to play with. We don't have to put all the reflections, but it definitely adds to the image if we play with more of those reflections. We'll go back in and make this around here a little bit darker after. That's okay. Come back in. More of that purple color. And it curves around up here. We're going to keep a little bit of the rim without this purple color because there is kind of a highlight going on around the rim. And there's also a highlight kind of going around this area here. It's fun that there's so many highlights in the plate here. We're going to have to be really careful around the red too, because we don't want this color to blend in with the red too much. And this is where we'll use the smaller brushes later to touch up these like little areas, because we don't want these colors to touch. I'll grab a smaller brush and we can always play with that after. And for this one, a bit of a kind of just sketching as we go with paint. Like, oh, that kind of ends there and this kind of starts here. This one kind of wraps around this area here. some really cool kind of like curves in here. I want to maybe try to create this with like a slightly smaller brush, but that like looks kind of cool. Same with over here, I feel like there's some really cool little areas. And then there's kind of a darker part on the edge of the plate, and then there's a lighter rim there, which we've already mixed the color up for that lighter part. So we'll go in with the lighter color next. Oh, don't want to mix too much of that red in there. See how quickly the red kind of gets on that other area. That's definitely why there's some oil painters that do it in layers and they wait for one color to dry before they do the next one, because it's very easy for the colors to mix. But I find it like a nice little challenge, you know? It's like, how can I get the colors not to mix and use like a steady hand to try to make it work out? Okay, so the plate looks pretty good, honestly. Now all we have to do is add those lighter colors in. So I'm gonna just clean this off. Actually, maybe what I'll do is, instead of cleaning it off, I'll just grab another brush, because that's easy enough. This one is, I don't really want to use a blender brush. Let me see. Oops, I'm dropping brushes now. Because I do have this like blender brush. I mean, I don't have another flat shader, I don't think. See, I need more brushes. Let's see. I feel like you can never have enough brushes. Maybe I'll use this. I've got an angle shader. So this is a 1/8 or an 1/8 inch. This is going to help us crisp up the lines between the two. So this will down here. See, I already want the purple again, so it's a good thing I didn't clean it. I'm going to go back with the lighter one. And make it a little thinner. And if we find this brush isn't like enough, like thin enough, I can always come back in and do it with a smaller brush as well later on. Because you can only add so much detail when you're using the bigger brushes. really does help to have those smaller brushes, but I try not to use those until the end because you don't want to be painting with a tiny brush the whole time, because I mean, unless you want your painting to take forever, you want to try to use the biggest brushes first. I remember learning that in school. I'm trying not to add too much paint either. Okay, I think that looks pretty good there. Okay, and then we will grab a little bit more of this lighter color. Add some of the details on the side. I feel like for like these thinner parts in here, I'm gonna want to probably have a smaller brush. But we'll see what we can get done with this bigger brush too. It doesn't need to be like super sharp, the lines for this one, because it's just a reflection. I'm just adding like little bits of reflection in everywhere that we see it on the reference image. If you guys are watching silently, thanks for being here. You know, sometimes you guys just tune in and you're just here to watch. I appreciate you guys tuning in, because it really helps the algorithm get this pushed out to more people that want to learn how to do this. My channel is so close to being monetized, and so all of these like watch hours are really helpful for monetizing my channel. I need 4,000 watch hours, so we're getting there. I've got the amount of subscribers I need. You only need 1,000 subscribers, so definitely well above that now. We just hit 4,200 subscribers the other day, which was crazy. Like celebrating all the like little milestones. It's crazy that so many people come and watch and tune into these and like watch my long form videos. So anytime you watch a long form video or any of these live streams, it helps me. Thank you. Yeah, it's coming along. We've got like that bottom part. Once we get the top background in, that's when it'll really start coming to life, and then we can start adding in all the details on the strawberry. I'm trying to resist adding the details in. It's always so hard. Sometimes I do paintings and I'll like add the details in right away, but it definitely takes a lot more time if you add the details in right away, because you have to switch from paintbrush to paintbrush, and you're like working on one tiny area at a time. Okay. love the look of these like little areas here. I didn't think I'd like painting the plate this much, but it's actually really fun to play with all these like cool little swirls. I need to paint more swirls apparently. And then we're gonna add in a little bit of this lighter color into this area. You can kind of see there's a bit of a reflection here. I really like how it's turning out so far. This is perfect for my birthday. And then this weekend, I'm planning to do a little party with some friends. And I'm really excited. I have a bunch of people coming already. Like my girlfriend's gonna come in the morning while I'm making everything because she can't come later in the day. And she's gonna help me just like clean up the house and get stuff made. And then later in the day, I've got a bunch of friends coming over, which is so nice. I love living in this condo building now because I have a really nice kind of communal area downstairs with like fire pits and barbecues, and we didn't really have anything like that in our old place because we had a single family home before, which, I mean, obviously we had more space in the house, but outside it was so small and there wasn't anything like community wise to go out and like socialize with your neighbors. So I like being in a community space like this now. It's more down my alley. Also, our house is so much easier to clean now. Like I say, I'm gonna have to clean up before like people come over this weekend, but it is so quick to clean this place now. I love having so much less space. It's making our life so much easier. Okay. Okay. Look at these cool swirls. Like, I love these swirls inside of the plate. It almost feels like I'm painting like similar to kind of like fabric. Like I love painting fabric because it's got all of those like cool little swirls and little transition colors. Like it just looks so nice. I love this. Okay. And then that looks pretty good. I think we'll like stop with the plate for now because I think it's looking pretty good. And then we can come back to it if we feel like we need to, but I like how it's turning out. Do realize that I need to maybe add a little bit of, I'm gonna go back into this area here. I'm gonna clean this little blender brush off a little bit. Okay. Blender, and then make it a little bit darker on that edge because I feel like it needs to stand out a little bit more. If we make some of this red go down there, I think it'll be okay. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit of this lighter red. And I left some of that so I can blend it with a smaller brush. I didn't want the red to mix into the purple too much, so we'll just keep that for smaller brushes. Same with over here. I guess we could start working on like the leaves at the top too and add like that greenish color in. Actually add a little bit more red to this area. I feel like some of these just need a little bit more that darker red. I guess we can always come back in with a bit of that brighter saturated red after the fact, but I'm doing it now because I want to. Trying to resist the urge, like I said, to add those details. Okay, let's grab a smaller brush because we're definitely going to need a smaller brush to do, let's do a 10/0. So this is a Princeton Velva Touch brush, 10/0 liner brush, and it's got kind of, it's like that type of tip on it. It's got like a longer tip. I'm going to use this for doing the green part, so the leaves. I'm going to start out with the darkest color first, and then we'll move to the lighter colors as well. Okay, so the darkest color is kind of on this back section of the leaf. Leaves are really fun to paint. The one thing I haven't painted a lot of is like flowers, which I'd like to paint more of. Painted like a few daisies and some gaillardias, which were really fun. Oh, I really loved painting the gaillardia one. You scroll back on some of my videos, you'll probably see a picture of the gaillardia one. That was a really fun one. I used to have a lot of flowers in my garden, so I would take pictures of like the flowers. That's the only downside to condo living is less flowers. But at least like the condo building, actually, like we have quite a bit of like nice landscaping here. But I mean, you can never have too many flowers, right? We do have the nice herb beds here, which is nice too. Okay, adding those darker areas in. If you see me like clicking things over here, it's because I'm also filming other reels and stuff. I like to film with a few cameras set up. I don't actually have my time-lapse camera set up this time. Sometimes I'll film time lapses as well. I haven't been doing that as much lately because I found like a lot of people didn't watch the time lapses, and I'm like, okay, well, I shouldn't spend so much time doing time lapses if no one really wants to watch them. So I focused more on some other long form videos, but I'll film them the odd time because I do still enjoy the time-lapse videos. But yeah, I always have a camera set up in vertical mode so then I can film vertical videos for the short form content because they're really popular now. I'm just going in with this slightly lighter color. And then we slowly transition to the lightest color. Okay, we should be able to go in with our lightest color now, and that'll make it look a little nicer. And then we also have that yellow over there that I thought we would use kind of for the very tips of it. I feel like I need a little bit of linseed oil for this color. So I'm just dipping my paintbrush in a little bit of the linseed oil. You don't want to do too much linseed oil. I think general rule is like less than 20%. You want to add more than 20% linseed oil to your paint because it already has linseed oil in it. Just sometimes you want it to be a little bit more runny so it's easier to work with. Okay, now we're adding those lighter colors in. See what I mean about the smaller brushes though? Makes it take longer, but you definitely can get like more details in when you have the smaller brushes, which is nice. Keep adding those lighter colors. We'll go in with that yellow right on the tips because you can tell it definitely needs a little bit of that brightness right on the tips of the leaves. This one. And then we'll go in with the brightest color, which I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit so we don't muddy up that yellow too much. I'm just going to grab a little bit of it and bring it over towards the green. So we don't get that because we need that for the seeds. I guess since we already have this, we could probably some of the details for the seeds with this brush. We're just adding the yellow to the tips, and that's going to be our highlight color. It's such a like subtle thing that adds so much to it. Just adding a bit more yellow and linseed oil to it. I want it to be able to come off my brush a lot easier. kind of there. There we go. Okay, so we've got the leaf there, and then we could start adding some. I don't want to add the highlights into the cheesecake quite yet, I don't think. Though the cheesecake is looking a little rough without those highlights, so it'll definitely look better once we add the highlights. I think we'll work on the strawberry and just getting that. Maybe we get the background and then we can fix up the colors of the strawberry first. Yeah, let's get the background in. Might as well get those darker colors in first. I think I will use number 6 Princeton Josol blender brush. You guys can see that? Let me bring it closer. There. And it's kind of got like this type of tip. We'll just use that, and then on the, it's a good blender brush, so I think it'll work out good. We'll start out with this middle color here, because as soon as we start adding this darker color, it's gonna kind of muddy everything else. So we want to start with these first. So this one's kind of like in some of these darker areas here. Like I said, we're not going to match it exactly, but we'll just kind of play with it. It's the background, it's the darkest kind of desaturated part because it is in the background. It's further away. We also want to make sure we don't add too much paint because we don't want this to look like it has any detail at all, because we are doing kind of that. Trying to recreate the photo effect the best that we can. That blurred background. We're probably going to need to go back into the leaves after and just add like a little highlight at the end, just in case we cover it up with any of this darker colors, because we want the leaves to pop out from the background. It's kind of like a darker bush at the back here, and then as it comes to the side it's like lighter. We'll kind of keep with that because I like the composition of the photo in that sense. We're going to come back in with that darker color after, but I'm going to just use this color for now. It's like the dark area. We're just working this into the paper to create a base layer. We're just, instead of doing the base layer right before we start everything else, we're kind of adding it in as we go. And this is kind of what I like to do. Okay. Hope everyone's summer has been going well too. I feel like I wanted to do even more this summer, and just sometimes you don't get to everything you want to do. I wanted to paddleboard more this summer, but I didn't really do as much paddleboarding as I thought I would. I guess there's still a little bit of summer left, so I could still go paddleboarding maybe this weekend. After my birthday, go on like a birthday paddle. Just you only have so many good days to go paddleboarding. I'm not much of a winter paddling type. Well, some people do it. I see some people in the water in their wetsuits, and it's a lot colder. Okay, it's going to be harder to get in between this area with this bigger brush, so I'm going to try to grab a smaller brush. I'm going to grab a number, let's grab a, this one looks a little jagged, but let's see if we can get this. Oh yeah, I bought some newer brushes too. This is one of my thin brushes that I bought. I think a slightly smaller one too. Where's my little one? This is another little one. Yeah, the back fills out pretty quickly. I'm gonna use, yeah, it's nice the back kind of fills out quickly. It's one of the, I'm gonna use a 20/0 Princeton Velvet Touch liner brush. It's just like that size, and I'm gonna use it to go around the edges. I'll try to get as much as I can with this brush first, and then we'll just touch up the edges. But yeah, this area doesn't need a lot of detail, so it's gonna come in pretty quickly. And then take my 20/01 and go in that same color. I'm gonna put a little bit of linseed oil in it. I'm finding it a little bit harder to spread. It's gonna be a pain in the butt around the strawberry thing if I don't add some linseed oil to it. What I'll do is I'll add kind of this around the edges, and then I'll probably go in with that like crappy little blender brush we were using before, and try to bring it as close as we can. And all I'm doing to keep my hand steady is using a little block that I have here. Helps to keep my hand a little steady when I'm do these little details. This is why some people like to paint the background, because then it's already like a color they don't mind showing through. I like to cover everything up, be very specific with colors I'm using. That's the nice thing though, is there's no right or wrong way to paint. There's only your way. Like that part about being an artist is if someone says you're doing something wrong in art, they're the wrong ones. You can do art however you want. And this is just one way to do it. I know the reason I'm sharing my process is because there's a lot of people that have asked about my process, but you don't have to paint exactly like me. You can kind of take bits and pieces of what you enjoy of my process and leave the other ones behind because you don't like them as much. Okay. Okay. Looks pretty good. And then we will take that little brush I was talking about. I gotta clean off this red though. I don't really want this red to infiltrate the other colors. Okay. And this, all it's going to do is it's going to help us to blend that area because it's hard to blend it right now. Because they're so tiny. How long did this take? Well, what are we at now? Where can I look at the stream time? Well, we started at 10 a.m. This is oils. Using the Gamblin oil paints. So these are like the paints that I'm using. Use these Gamblin oil colors. And then this little thing over here that I'm dipping in is just oil. I actually paint all of my oils solvent free. So I didn't want to use, that's the one thing that like scared me about oils for so long, is a lot of people use solvents. So I use absolutely no solvents in my oil paintings. The Gambling colors that I use have no solvents in them either. They just have refined linseed oil in them. Yeah, about 2 hours, I guess. Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, about that. That sounds about right. Because I started around 10. So we mixed the colors first and I explained the process. My husband was saying this the other day, but like I'm definitely quicker at painting when I'm not sitting here explaining things the whole time. But I really love the process of like explaining things. Yes, chemical free, I guess. Trying to stay away from the really toxic solvents. I mean, like, it scared me because like a lot of the old masters, like, they did not practice very good. They didn't paint in very ventilated rooms either, though. Didn't practice very safe use of a lot of the chemicals. A lot of people used turpentine back in the day. A lot of people still use them. Even like mineral spirits, like they say like they're odor free, but I mean, that maybe makes it even more dangerous because they aren't as strong smelling as some of the other ones. I've just always found a way to use it without all of the like mineral spirits and stuff, and it works out perfectly fine. So I've created my own techniques. Yep, exactly. Just the talking definitely makes my process go a little bit slower, that's for sure. Okay, we are getting this, like, we're just kind of blending at this point. We're just blending these different areas. I'm gonna go back and make sure that things are looking good. There we go. This little blender brush really helps with these edges. And then we're going to add kind of that lighter color as well into there. I'm probably just going to add it with this little blender brush, to be honest. So we're going to add this light color here, this lightish color. Lighter than the other one anyway. Into some of these areas. And then we're going to add an even lighter color kind of in the middle of it. We're going to add a little bit of this color here. And that's what's going to give it kind of that effect in the middle. Yeah, the smallest brush is the blender brush. This one, it's just a really old 2/0 like Princeton Imperial brush. It used to be a round brush, but now I use this. I need to get like a mini mop brush, but this one works okay. These are the other blender brushes I really like using, is these mini mop brushes, but this is just way too big for specifically the area I want. Like I can use it for like these areas. It'd be okay for those bigger areas. And they blend it out really well. And that's just like dry brushing on the top of it. But yeah, for like the smaller areas, I tend to use just this crappy old brush. Honestly, some of the oldest, crappiest brushes are the best brushes that I use. Yeah, for the smallest details, at this point we're kind of at that point of the painting where we're adding in more of those small details. We've been using kind of bigger brushes and slowly working our way down to the smaller brushes. That's why we haven't added a lot of the details into the main part of the image yet. The crappier the better, exactly. You get it. You must be an artist. Honestly, it's like the crappy brushes that do the best job. This one was one of my first oil painting brushes. I started oil painting, what, like probably 4 years ago now. And it was one of the first brushes that I bought. And I completely, I did not wash it. That's why it's so crappy now. And so much paint got into the ferrule and a bunch of the bristles started. Well, I don't think a lot of the bristles honestly fell out. They just kind of have gotten really fluffy on the edges. That's what we'll call it. I'm going with this slightly darker one. Honestly, I love how this background is turning out. Like, obviously it's not like the best colors. Like, I wouldn't normally be like, yeah, this is my favorite color, but it looks really good up against all the other colors. I love green and kind of like earthy tones. More of that lighter yellow. To this area here. We still haven't even went in with the darker color yet. I'm trying to get all these slightly lighter colors, and then we'll deepen up some of these shadows so they stand out a little bit more. I wanted to make an effect of like, you know, like bushes and stuff being in the background here, which I think I did pretty good in Photoshop. This is not an actual photo. Like this I found on Canva, just this, and then I added the plate and like the background in Photoshop because I was like, I can draw something with my drawing tablet. Normally I just kind of do like similar. Some of the colors are obviously spot on, but like the plate colors, I wanted them to go more on like the purple end when I was mixing, just because I like to add a bit more color into my paintings. I don't like them to be as like dull, I guess would be the way to describe it. I like the colors to be a bit more saturated, that's for sure. I err on the side of saturation. And then there's definitely some colors within this painting that I kind of just made up on my own. I tend to add different colors to like my highlights and stuff. Like I like my highlights to be a little bit more blue a lot of the time. Either blue or like yellow. The highlights we're going to use this time are more on like the blue end. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of tried to change it up a little bit so it's not just the same as the reference photo. So the reference photo I did kind of make up anyway, so it does. It's like, that's one of the things I really love about being an artist and like painting is that if you're like in the middle of doing a painting, you can kind of just change things on the fly. Like anytime I've done like plein air painting and stuff, that's the thing I really love about plein air painting is you're like, oh, I don't want that log there. I'm just like not gonna add that. And then I'll completely take out like architectural details and stuff. Or if I'm like, I don't like the way the sprinkle looks in that area, I'm gonna put the sprinkle over here, then you can kind of like shift things in your image, which is like way more fun. And you can really play with the composition to make it better. It's like the hard part about like photography. Like I have a few friends that are photographers and they talk about like trying to get their images just right, and I'm like, as an artist, I'm like, well, I can take a photo and then just like play with it afterwards. Don't really need to have it perfect to begin with. You can kind of just play with it as you go. Okay. So the background's kind of cool. I like the brownish green we've got going on in the background. How long does it take me to mix colors? I think these ones probably took me about an hour to mix. Normally when I'm not explaining it. It depends, like, I mean, this one definitely has like quite a bit of colors, like by row. Like one row might take me like 20-30 minutes. And then the more colors you kind of add, you kind of go from there. It also depends on if I'm struggling to mix colors one day. I'm pretty good at like it now. It definitely took me a lot longer when I first started. I'm getting way better at mixing colors now. It's one of my favorite parts of painting now is the color mixing. And that's why I like doing it kind of right at the start, and then you can kind of just mix the colors, enjoy the process of mixing the colors, and then go and paint. Some people like to mix it on the fly, but I like to just kind of have everything done, especially with like my mini painting style. It works really well. Like if you were doing like a bigger piece, you might not want to mix all of your colors. You might just want to mix like a certain area of colors for like a bigger painting. Some people just do like one color at a time and wait for it to dry and then do another color. I haven't done bigger pieces in a very long time. I've just kind of gravitated towards these really mini pieces. This is like a 3" by 3" canvas. So very tiny. Oh, I like how that background's turning out. It's a very different color, and I'm gonna add, I think, a little bit more saturation to it, but I like how it's turning out so far. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. And then Yeah, doing it on the fly kind of, it seems like it takes too long because you're like, oh, now I want this color, and then you have to like mix it. And a lot of the time people end up ruining their brushes, I was saying earlier, because you're like mixing on the fly and then your paintbrush just gets so gross because you're trying to mix with your paintbrush. So that's why I just like use my palette knife, mix the colors, and then start. And then it makes sure that I'm not using my paintbrushes for that aspect of it. I'm going to add this darker color now. So I'm going to slowly mix in these darker areas. And then I want to go back in and I want to add a little bit more green tone to the background. Just a little bit. Trying to have more contrast in between the leaves and the background. That's why I didn't want to go too green. Go. That's adding a little bit of that dark color that we want. Honestly, don't want too much of this darker color. And there we go. And then I'm gonna go in with a little bit of this green that we made down here. Just because I do want some similarities to the leaves, but not too much. I'm thinking I might take this little mini mop brush and like use a little bit of that in this like lighter green. There we go. It's adding some of that green back that I wanted into it. Yeah, I think it brings out the colors more, keeping it darker. That's why I don't want to go too light with these, but I do want to add a little bit of the saturation, especially in like these brighter areas, because they're a little too creamy in color for my liking right now. Adds a little bit more depth when you can layer on the colors a little bit. To go in with the blender brush. There we go. Just a little bit, you know, like just adding that little bit of green really makes it pop along the edges of those light colors. And I added just enough where, you know, there's a bit of a transition, but not too much that we're taking away from the main part of the photo. And I think like honestly the background like looks pretty good right now. Yeah, like I'm trying to make sure that like it stays focused. I think it's like kind of going back and forth between the focused reference photo and my photo, because this is like a little out of focus right now, but we'll do that. It's a little bit more focused. Yeah, every little bit helps, right? Just like the little details and stuff. And okay, I'm going to touch up the leaf at the top of the strawberry a little bit. I want to add a bit more of that yellow in, so I'm going to go back in with my 10/0 Velvet Touch liner brush with that yellow color. And I'm gonna just add a little bit more of those details back in because we covered a little bit of it up. I want to add the edges of them back in. It'll just really like sharpen things up a little bit, and then we'll go in with like a highlight color as well. Highlight the edges. My husband and son, I can see them outside. I love how we have like our new condo right on the courtyard. They're outside playing in the little golf area. I'm gonna grab my 20/0 liner brush and put some of that dark color back in. I feel like we need this area. I kind of covered up a little too much. Shouldn't have put so much lightness in there. So you can always go back in and kind of touch it up. I'm gonna put a little bit of this darker color here from the background into the leaf now in certain areas, just to add a little bit of contrast. Sometimes we have to darken up certain areas so others stand out a bit. Kind of like pushing and pulling the colors until it looks better. At this point, we're just kind of playing with the colors because now that we've got most of the color kind of on it, you can kind of see it a little bit more. You can see all the intricacies of everything a little bit more. And you've got all the base colors laid down. And then you'll know if your values are correct at that point. And then I think I want to add some of the details in the strawberry at this point. So I'm going to take my 20/0 that had the green on it, and I'm just going to clean it off. We're going to use this brush as the red brush now for the strawberry. We're going to start out with some of these darker colors, and what we're going to do is on the strawberry, if you look really closely on the reference image, you can kind of see that it has, where the seeds are, there's like little divots. So now we're going to have to make the little divots where the seeds go, and I'm going to use this darker color, and I'm going to slowly make each divot by hand. And this is obviously a tedious process, but it's going to really make that part pop a little bit. And if you're trying this on pretty small, so that's why we're using the 20/0 brush, the smallest brush that we have. I don't honestly know if they make even smaller brushes. They have to. But I haven't found one yet at any of our local stores, so I might have to order an even smaller brush online. I'm always trying to find new small brushes because it's honestly really hard to come by like tiny brushes. Not a lot of companies make tiny brushes because a lot of people want to do like these massive paintings, which is great, but I like me some small ones. sure there must be some more brands that have like tiny brushes. I know there's like people that paint like little figures and stuff, so we just haven't come across a brand locally for that. To find like a store that caters to like mini figures or something. Some of those like little mini figure paintings are so cool. It's one of the reasons I started doing like polymer clay too. Really enjoyed painting kind of like the smaller little sculptures that I've made using my painting skills in a different kind of way. It's fun. I have to keep dipping it in to the fresh paint because it'll get mixed in with the other colors there. I've been just adding these. It's starting to add more. It's not looking as blurry anymore as you add the details. I keep like touching this, being like, is it too blurry? And then even for some of these other seeds, like as you get further down, I'm going to use a slightly darker color for the seed area. You'll notice that as you get down to this area that it gets a little darker. So we're going to actually start using this blackish, it's our black. It's a purpley red. Reddy purple. That's the closest I normally get to black, is that color. It's like a purple. So we're just going to add that kind of purple color. And making sure I'm making these like small enough too. Also not trying to go for the most hyper realistic thing, or at least I don't normally go like for super hyper realistic. I like to add little brush strokes in there because there's just something that I really enjoy about being able to like look closely at a painting and see like little brush strokes. I definitely used to paint like more hyper realistic, but over the years I've just kind of been like, no, I actually kind of like adding some of those like brush strokes back in. So now it's just like an aesthetic choice, I guess, I make. If you want to do more like hyper realistic stuff, you definitely need to do more like layered oil painting. The style of oil painting I do is specifically called alla prima, so I'm doing it all in one go, is what that means. Whereas a lot of oil painters that do hyperrealism, they'll have like layers upon layers, like a lot of the old masters. They would add a lot of layers to their paintings and they would wait for each layer to dry, and that gave the painting a little bit more depth, especially when they were working with like portraits and stuff. So you can add a lot of different glazes, and they worked with like the fat over lean concepts as well, which is like the leaner parts of the painting were like adding more of the turpentine, and then the fatter areas were when you like added like the linseed oil to the top, which I guess I can't really do that anyway because I paint without solvents. Okay, that is looking pretty good. I feel like we can add some seeds now, and this will be really fun. Then we get to add some seeds and some of the highlights. So I'm gonna grab this 10/0 brush that already has some of that yellow in it. We're gonna start with the darker yellow first though. So I'm gonna just clean off a bit of this brighter yellow. And we've got kind of this orangish yellow that we mixed up. I mean, it's just orange. It's like dark orange. I don't know why I'm calling it yellow, it's orange. And then I'm just kind of trying to make a really nice tip on the end of this. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to start making some little seeds. I'll make really tiny little seeds in those pockets that we created. I don't want to make like it super seedy, so don't accidentally put too big of seeds on, or it's just gonna look really awkward. I mean, unless you like strawberries that are super seedy. I was always disappointed when we grew strawberries and they became super seedy, and I was like, oh man, we're not buying that variety again. Oh, boys are back now. Hello guys. Welcome home. This painting is taking me longer, but you guys are welcome to hang out. Slowly add some more. Oh, it looks so cute as you add this. We're adding the seeds right now to the strawberry. It actually looks really cool as I'm adding the seeds. You want to come see?
Later.
Later. They don't want to interrupt. Okay. We're not even really making these like, trying to make them as seed shaped as we can anyway. But our brush is only so small, so at this point some of them are just dots. And that's okay too. Honestly, they look pretty good though. Even though the strawberry that I decided to pick is very small. Even me trying to be careful with this, we maybe did the seeds a little, they're not too bad. Try not to do them too big. trying to make sure the seeds that I do down here are a little lighter as well. Or not lighter, darker. So they don't show up as much. So I'm kind of just using my brush. You can kind of use your brush in a lighter kind of stroke to add less paint. It's like one of the techniques that I use is just dabbing it on a lot lighter in certain areas if you don't want to add as much paint to that area. I mean, honestly, I like the strawberry. Looking pretty cute. Now we'll be able to add some of the highlights into that main area. Let's see, which brush do we want to use? Maybe we'll grab, this one already has a pretty light color on it. Just gonna clean it off a little bit. Just cleaning it off. I grabbed another cloth because we've actually gotten this one like really dirty. I cleaned off a lot of the brushes just because there's a lot of colors this time around. So. I really like how we decided to do the purple on the plate instead. I feel like it really adds a lot to the final product. Okay, so we're gonna grab this color that we used on the plate. Yeah, all the like little finishing touches are really fun to like bring everything together. So we're just grabbing this kind of white here. I'm gonna slowly add some highlights to these areas at this point. Go around the edges, I'm just gonna kind of blend it in to this area, and then we'll go back in and add some even brighter highlights on top of that. We're just kind of getting like a base area of like where we want to put the highlights. So we want some highlights over here. I'm just gonna kind of keep dabbing this off because we're using this to blend with this white. I want some highlights in there. Some in there. You don't want the highlights to be perfect because then it'll look a little too fake at that point. The more sporadic and crazy, the more realistic it will look. Brush up in, and then we'll probably pop out like my brand new brush that I haven't even opened yet. We'll use that for like the brightest highlights at the end because I've been wanting to use my brand new brush. Hello. Have you been listening to the sound during the stream, Arvin?
No.
Because the sound cut out there for a little bit.
We were at the library, so I wasn't listening. I was writing and stuff.
I don't know what happened there. have to do some maybe test streams before the next one to make sure that they're connected well. Now we get to add the fun thick highlights. This is my absolute favorite part. I'm gonna grab also my liner brush now. Still got like the little case on it. This is the 10/0 Velvet Touch Princeton Velvet Touch liner brush, and it's still got the case on it. So we get to take this brand new one. I'm gonna dip it in a little bit of the linseed oil and then into this whitish blue paint that we made. And this is going to be that main highlight color. I'm going to try not to muddy this up with the red color too much. Keep the strokes pretty thick on this one. And we're gonna cool like reflections even in the shadow part. Just gonna make sure I don't forget to add some of these little reflections in the shadow. The thing with these smaller paintings too is you're not going to be able to add all of the details, so you kind of have to pick and choose what's going to help the most when it comes to your painting, to be a bit more decisive on what parts you care about and what parts you don't. Which is kind of fun because you get to like learn over time which parts of the image add the most value as far as like final painting goes. And we're also going to add some highlights into the strawberry as well, because there's quite a bit of highlights in the strawberry. And I'm going to make this part a little bit more bright, because there's more of that bright color right here. And then yeah, you can see around the strawberry, like around this area, it's not quite this bright though, so I do think we want to tone this color down a little bit with like the pink, because if we go in with too bright of a color, it might look a little odd and the values will be quite a bit off. So I'm going to use a little bit of this color over here, this like orangish color. I'm just going to add that into the white so the white isn't completely white. It's got more of like an orangish yellowy tone. Put the yellow in there too. kind of go around the seeds a bit. At least in this upper corner, there's more highlights over there. And they're kind of around the edges. Edges of the seed, and they kind of like wrap around. I've actually painted quite a bit of strawberries. I realize it's a similar technique for most strawberries. So you normally have the shiny parts on the edge, and then the inside, the darker parts. And normally what I do is I kind of just sit back. It's hard because I've got like cameras in front, but trying to get, sometimes nice to step back from your image so you can really see where you've placed and where you might need to go back in with more colors and details. I'm going to keep the highlights kind of to this top part of the strawberry. Don't want to go down too far. Especially into these darker areas, we want to keep the highlights out of the darker areas. I don't want to add too much of this because it might deter from the seeds a little too much. Try to be careful that the colors are quite a bit different. So it looks like highlights and not seeds. That's why we're making them look slightly different. Honestly, I think it's coming out pretty good though. It's almost like the painted one. I always end up liking the painted one more because I can add like more color and vibrancy to things and a little bit more interest. Okay, I'm trying to think where I want to maybe add a little bit more detail. I think I want to fix up a little bit of the shadows in this part. And there's not a ton of highlights. I wouldn't say they're called highlights, but there's like reflections in like these areas. So like adding a little bit of the white to it might help a bit. Like a toned down white, you know? Just a little bit. And at this point in the painting, make sure that we have the edges of things looking okay. I'm gonna actually put, don't have a red brush right now. Here, I'll use this one. We've got this one that has orange on it. I'm just going to clean that off because we don't need any more of the orange, I don't think. That's what we were using for the seeds. And I'm going to dip this in that more saturated red because I'd like a little bit more of that red in certain areas. At least this was a nice example of how to change a color on a painting if you wanted to by adding the purple plate. Because sometimes you don't want the exact color. Okay, so I've got a bit of that bright red. I just want to add a bit more of that to the edges. I feel like some of the red got a little diluted with a little bit too much of that. Going to bring up hair on that. That was just a fabric hair. I have to bring this up a little bit. I feel like there's a few of the areas I didn't want it to go down as far. Got a little bit of orange in this area. I feel like we need more contrast in between these two colors. I don't want to add more of that like greenish color. This one has like a reflection kind of like of the background a bit, so that's why it's a bit green on this side. I want to add more of the orange kind of color to it so it's not too much. Just right around that edge bit there. Add a bit more of that orange around here as well. To push and pull the colors a little bit more, just so they stand out a bit. We're almost like kind of adding shadows and a little bit of depth into that area now by adding this orange in. It's like those little final touches that add quite a bit. The one I'm using right now, I'm using a number 0 Seneca flat brush right now. It would definitely not the smallest one. The smallest one we're using is, so like in comparison, I can show you a little comparison. So this is one of the bigger brushes we're using, is the flat one right now. And this is the smallest brush that I have. So you can kind of tell the tips are very, very tiny. And this one's a liner brush specifically. So I definitely have some very tiny ones. This one's pretty big though. I could be using a smaller brush, but I just adding in kind of like these details here at this point. Normally when you're adding in details you want to use slightly smaller brushes, but we'll get there. Okay, I've got, there we go. And then we've got kind of some darker bits in this area. I'm just adding in one of those deeper sections of red. I'm going to go in with that really bright red. I just want to make the centers of these like really bright, then it will show that it's like fresh dripping down the middle there. I mean, obviously the drips on mine are a little different than the drips on the other one. As long as the composition still looks good, it doesn't really matter that the drips are a little bit different. I am gonna add way more of these like little squiggly ones because I feel like it adds to it having some little bits that aren't as even. Kind of like having the variation, I feel like it really adds to the painting when they're not super uniform. There we go. Made them like a little less. The chroma, I mean, I would say I tend to go on the more saturated end of things because I like to brighten up colors quite a bit. So yeah, it's on the higher end for sure. I think I just naturally enjoy really bright colors. I mean, obviously some of the colors are pretty accurate to the photo, but I edit the photo before I like print it out and stuff, and I tend to bump up the saturation quite a bit in a lot of my images because I love the look of just like super saturated food. I do some landscape painting, but I mostly enjoy still life painting. I've done a little bit of plein air painting. I do think I would like to do some more plein air painting. The colors definitely are a little bit lower on the saturation for them. So yeah, I think that's why I gravitate towards still life painting and then just like editing my photos before I paint. Or sometimes I'll paint from life as well. I don't do a lot of like from life ones, but it's pretty fun to paint from life. As long as you have a decent setup and your color isn't, your like shadows and color isn't changing all the time, you want to have kind of a lighting setup for that. Which I definitely could. Got a big window beside me though, so the light would change quite a bit in a still life here. I need to do it in a more light controlled. That's actually the fun part about plein air painting too, is that the light changes so often, and so you have to actually paint like pretty quickly for those. And then kind of add the details in later on if you want. It's like a nice challenge though. I think that's why a lot of people like plein air painting, because it's like a challenge in itself, right? To try to really get those colors down as quickly and mix the colors kind of on the fly as they happen. Have you done a lot of plein air painting? I need to have more friends that do plein air painting, because most of my friends are also still life artists as well. Or that too, yeah. Just take a picture, right? It lasts longer. That's what they say. I'm just touching up these edges here, as you can see. Just really adding this super saturated color to the edge. Okay. Yeah, pictures definitely help. We are lucky we live in an age of photos. The old masters back in the day probably had a very interesting time capturing certain things. I'm sure they had their techniques though. I don't know much about the plein air masters as much. I'm adding some of this dark color into this kind of shadow area here, because I noticed that there's just not enough of a shadow here. There we go. Added a little bit more depth in that area. Yeah, photos are definitely a lifesaver. I love working off of photos because then it's like a little less finicky that way. It's also been cool. Like I want to get better at photography. I have some friends that are photographers, and it's a whole skill in itself to take nice photos. I'm glad we have like just like point and shoot cameras now though. Our phones are honestly like really good at just point and shoot. I do have a fancier camera. I have a Sony a6400, which is like a mirrorless camera. I need to learn how to use it a little bit better, but I have a few lenses for it, and when I have used it, the photos are definitely better than the phone. Until I don't know, maybe I'll take like, there must be some local photography courses or something I could take to get better at it, because I feel like I've kind of looked up things online to try to get better, but it's sometimes just nice to take an in-person class. Like I've liked taking in-person painting classes sometimes. There's a few places, and we have some universities here that do painting classes, and you can just take individual classes. You don't have to like go and get a whole art art degree out of it or anything. But it's nice to do some in-person, or some of my friends that are photographers, they said they could help me out a bit, so. Okay. I mean, I'm just kind of, at this point, I'm just playing around adding those darker colors to the image. You could stop here if you wanted. I sometimes just like to go in and play with the values a little bit more. I'm gonna take this kind of darker purple and blend these two together to make a slightly lighter purple. And I'm going to use that purple kind of in here because I noticed that this isn't quite as dark as I'd like it. A little deeper. Yeah. I could put this down. Yeah, I love adding the little tweaks at the end. I feel like it's the little tweaks at the end like this that really add the most amount of value to your end painting. It's crazy how much just like a few little adjustments can really play with it, like the highlights and then the darker areas. Like they're so subtle, but they do make a big difference. Just adding that darker purple in here. Oh my gosh, I love the purple. I'm so glad that we went with a purple plate color. I feel like it. So nice. This is definitely the part of the painting where I'm all over the place and kind of just get to watch this part. If you are painting along, it is a little chaotic, this section. But it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, there we go. Just lightening that section up. I made it a little too dark there. There was some like areas in here I wanted to darken up. Just kind of in some of these like little ridges I was making. It's that darker color. I want this darker color to come out a little bit more. See how it's kind of got like a jagged edge there. Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is a really fun reference photo to work with. I was really excited to do this reference photo. Hey, let me just kind of, I think I could add a little bit more highlight to those leaves. Like I feel like I already have white on this one. I want them to be a little bit more on the yellowy orange side. Like just like the very tips, you know? like just on the edges of the leaf, you know? It's almost like they're kind of like fuzzy a little bit. Kind of gives it like a fuzzy texture. People have been asking me a lot how I get like the fuzzy texture on things. Is I add a lot of dimension by adding different highlights, different colors of highlights. That's what really gives it that kind of fuzzy texture on the tips of things. Like I need to maybe do like a peach painting at some point, because this is like one of the peach paintings I did, and people keep asking me about this fuzzy texture, so I think at some point I should really do some peaches. That would be like a really fun one to do together. Don't need to do all of like a whole thing of peaches, but just like one peach, you know? Just to like really get that texture down and explain the little bits of texture. How many think to create this? That's a good question. I mean, I'm kind of like mixing even some colors as I'm using it. So like there's the base colors. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then we've got like 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26-ish colors. I mean, I'd have to watch it all back, but probably around 26-ish, just from mixing stuff directly, the colors that I had pre-mixed on the palette. Quite a bit of colors that go into it. And then like, you think about all the colors that are the transition colors between things on the actual painting itself, because I'm like blending some things on the painting as well, so I'm sure there's, at that point, there's even more. Adding some little details in here. Notice that some of these are kind of like, it's like jagged. There's a really cool texture going on in some of these. Okay, I think I'm done playing around with it enough. I mean, yeah, kind of like gradients between the two colors. So like think about the background that we mixed. I kind of like took this base color, I took the lighter color, and then I was mixing kind of those in between colors with that little tiny little crappy brush. And then on top of that I added another color as well. So just like adding all of the little colors on top is going to create those little gradients as well, which is pretty cool. Like when you think about it, like how many colors are involved, you know. To an artist, you can kind of, after a while, you're like, you see all of these crazy colors and things, but you know, someone that maybe doesn't paint would look at this and be like, okay, this is red, this is like a weird white color, this is like an orange color, and then there's green and more green, and then they're kind of done with it. And I think a lot of people, when they start painting, they don't look at colors as deeply, and then the more you get painting, the more you kind of are like, oh wow, there's all of these cool colors involved in creating one piece. Like our world is very interesting when it comes to color and light and reflections, and like water is really cool to paint for that because there's so many, like anything that's like really shiny is fun to paint because there's so many little reflections of light in different directions. And like that's the other thing I want to get better with, like photography, is like you could have like different types of light shining on your objects. So you have like red light on one side and like a green light on the other, and like have that coming across in your painting. Yeah, it works together to become one, exactly. Well, I hope you guys like the painting today. I'm glad that you guys were here. Thanks for tuning in for my birthday stream. It was nice to have you guys for my birthday and to just hang out with me. And I'm really excited to eat some cheesecake this weekend. I don't know what flavor. Normally I get cherry cheesecake, but there's some local ones that are like a cherry cheesecake, and then there's also strawberry and some chocolate ones too. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I'm just gonna have to get all of the different slices and have a little bit of each. And that'll be my way. So if you are new here, I do this every week on Wednesday. Here's a little how to join if you would like to. I do have an email list, and if you sign up to that, then I will send. Yeah, I'm on Wednesdays, so every Wednesday at 10 a.m. PST I do these. If you sign up to the email list, then I send out notifications every time that I go live, or you can just check my YouTube channel. I tend to post like the next week's. Thank you. Thanks for the happy birthdays, everyone. But I post that, and if you want to join, you can just tag me on social media and let me know if you do try out some of these paintings. It's really fun to see other people's interpretations of it and change up the colors and play around, add some different details, or completely take out like the background if you wanted to and just paint the cheesecake. It's really fun to. I did that with last week's one. We did this little one last week, and we just kind of took out the background of this, and it's fun to play with that aspect. But I'd like to see all of your paintings, so if you do try it out, let me know. But until next week, thanks for joining in, and I will see you in the next live stream. So I hope you have a good rest of your day.